coding writer's block. It's figuring out how the heck to get started. The more I build, the more I get into this stuff and the better I get, the more I realize that the hardest part of almost any project or problem is just figuring out how to get started and how to actually start getting things on the page. Because I always find once I get deep into a project or an idea or a task or something, it feels really good and it's really easy. Once I'm 2-3 hours in and I've got a bunch of stuff on the page, it's free. It feels great working on projects when there's already a bunch of stuff built. I'm iterating on a good foundation. I know what's going on. But it's not nearly as great when I'm sitting here looking at a blank code editor and I'm like, okay, how the hell do I even get this project started? I have this idea. How do I translate it into reality? And I've come up with some stuff that's helped me out that I've started doing lately, which has really helped my productivity and getting going on all these projects. And as someone who builds an insane amount of random side projects and has like 6 things going right now, I've spent a lot of time figuring out projects at the early stage. So if you want to get into building more stuff, which I think you should, hopefully this helps you out. So really the thesis of what I want to talk about today is going to be this idea of starting with the components instead of the actual website. I have been working on this little generative AI app. I think I've already put out the videos on that by the time you're watching this. And when I was trying to figure this out, I kind of ended up building this in a way that's very different from what I usually do. Usually when I would go and build an app, I would start with a blank page like this. I would create my next app or my SvelteKit app or my Fiber app or whatever. I'd end up with my nice blank landing page and I'd be like, okay, well, what the fuck do I do now? I'd usually start by making like a nav bar or something, and then I'd make a really crappy homepage, and I'd be like, man, I hate my life, and then I'd stop, and it was just not helpful at all. But what I ended up doing differently on this project, which has made this project feel a lot better and move a lot quicker than they normally do, is I started with the components because the way the mental model on a lot of these AI applications work, especially the ones where you're using the LLM to interact with it, these Gen AI applications like I talked about before, what we really care about here is the components. I don't really care about the nav bar or where all this stuff goes. I just care about the little core pieces that actually do the thing, that actually make the app work. So that's what I did here. I created this little playground route, and when you go over in here, what you're going to see is you're just going to see a bunch of different stuff I initially started working on. When I was like, okay, I want to make a weights tracker, what's the first thing I need to do to get a weights tracker going? I need to be able to create a workout. I started with the components and I was like, wait, I need the data model. So then I went ahead in here when I was scaffolding my app, I went into libdb, I created my little schema in here. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is probably what we need to get this going. I created the functions to help this out. And then really the first thing I built was not the nav bar, not the home page, not the FAQ page, not the footer, but the components. I went through and I built the create workout component. I built the workouts component to view all the workouts I've created. I made this nice little card to actually view the different sets and reps that I'd done. And I created this little exercise component. And having this little playground route where it's just a list of a bunch of different cards basically that I've made that I can stick into my application was really nice. It was a really nice way of thinking about it. And I've started incorporating this into some bigger projects I've been doing. It's been really helpful. But over time, as I keep building out this project, there's more stuff we're going to need to make in here. I'm going to need to have an edit state for all these workouts. I'm going to need to have I'm going to need to create a little card to view, okay, what's the currently selected workout? What are we doing in all these different things? I'm just going to make them first here in this playground and then stick those into my LLM and then work with them in the main UI so I can just put these in. So that really helps me kind of get going. And now that I've got this momentum going, it's been so much easier actually working on this. And to make this even quicker and easier, something I've been consciously really trying to do lately has been leveraging like AIs and LLMs and stuff, because for a long time, I really never touched them. I actually let my Copilot subscription lapse. I still haven't re-upped it. I don't know, maybe I will at some point. I don't know. I honestly have not found Copilot to be that helpful. I find it hallucinates way more than I'd like it to. Not a huge fan. But what I have been really enjoying is I really like Perplexity. I've been really enjoying that for a lot of my projects. I've also been really enjoying V0 by Vercel. I actually made a lot of these components with V0. And now, obviously, these are not the prettiest components in the world. This is kind of a monstrosity. I get it. But this is a hell of a lot better than a blank page. And when you're in the early stages of just figuring this stuff out, especially on like a side project or an early thing, it makes a lot of sense to me to just start with these little building blocks and then socket them together. Because that's kind of how I've started thinking about websites in general, is just like, okay, I need to figure out on the front end side of things, because I really think about things more from front end to back end now. I used to be more of a back end to front end guy. You can really see that in my code choices and the things I talk about and care about now, is I start with these little components and I'm like, okay, what do we need to do in here to get this to, I just start with these little units of functionality, and this is enough to get it working. Once I get this working, we can take another pass at this to make it good. I don't need to get perfectly gorgeous UI first try. I can just get it to work. And then once it works, I go back through and I iterate on it. And having something like this V0 generator is such a help, because while yes, this isn't the greatest UI ever, there's still like, this is still like 20 minutes of work, and it's 20 minutes of bleh work that I don't want to do. I mean, look at this code. Like, yeah, this isn't that hard. Yeah, this is just going to ShadCN and grabbing some stuff and sticking it all together, putting some fake data in. Obviously, this isn't hard, but eliminating that friction is so nice. I just go through, I just get this, copy paste it into there. I can add some logic to this. Very common thing I was doing in this application is I would generate the UI there for like this view all workouts. I generate this UI, and then I would connect it to my backend, because since we're utilizing React server components in here, which I think are dope as hell, fight me on that one, I can just go through and say, okay, let's go ahead and just add my data fetching logic here into this card. And now I have this nice, beautifully packaged little piece, which I can stick into my application wherever I want. And it makes it super easy to just build stuff and get stuff going off the ground. Once we're deeper into this, eventually I'll be like, yeah, okay, so probably this should go live up here. Yeah, we need a nav bar. Yeah, we need a homepage. We need all this stuff. But then I'll actually have an app that I'm wrapping in here instead of just wrapping nothing with this beautiful little exterior that just ends up wasting my time. I cannot tell you how many projects are just living in the graveyard, which have a half-built nav bar and some little homepage and a couple little pieces in like an FAQ that just don't work. So basically what I'm telling you guys to do is to just start with some functionality, and I think it makes it a lot easier to just build stuff out. And this doesn't just apply to little side project-y type things. When you go through and actually build something like this, there's a lot here to think about when you actually want to build this out. But starting with just this little card, starting here, making that work, and then expanding out and then figuring out how to socket all this stuff together, I found it to be much more productive. So that's basically my recommendation, is to start smaller and start with actual functionality. And also to just kind of make things sort of janky. If you look at my little playground directory over here, I haven't done it in here, but for a lot of these, when we have like my edit card and I have my view individual workout cards and all that stuff, I'm going to hard code IDs in here. I'm going to make it kind of jank, and who cares? Like, it doesn't really matter. Just do stuff that kind of just makes it work, and then add the like scalability onto it later. That's kind of, and this is a little bit philosophical and kind of, I don't know if I'm right on this, honestly. This is just kind of something that's been developing in my head the more I build stuff, is this sort of idea of like, just build it once, janky as hell, getting it to work, then go through and like, okay, make it actually like good and look correct and fix it, and then push it out there. And then when the time comes that your kind of hacky solution and first version doesn't work, then you scale it. And I think that applies too to stuff like the backend. I'm very happy having my backend logic for this little example project be my helper.ts file, where I have this create workout function, which is just using Drizzle to insert stuff into my database. It makes a ton of sense. It's super easy. I don't need a separate server to run all this stuff. It makes no sense. When the time comes that this gets too unwieldy, it's super simple to go through and just go into my create workout function and be like, okay, instead of doing db.insert, let's do fetch to my Golang backend and then run it there. We just expand out as we need to, but anytime I try and start with the fully prepped, microserviced up, scaled, Dockerized motherfucker thing that just does all the stuff the way it's supposedly supposed to, it's not productive. I don't ever end up getting stuff done. And is that a me problem? Possibly, probably. And maybe it's just my fault. But, I'm finding that working like this and working just from smaller pieces in the minimum possible way to just get them working, it's working really well. And I've been really productive lately because of it. So that's what I wanted to say. This helps you out. Make sure you like and subscribe. And otherwise, I will talk to you soon.